More mid-card title runs. I've been focusing on other things recently, hence the lack of them, but I don't want to waste your time. Carlito's always been a what if. It's interesting, and around here the sentiment was that he was going to be huge. Unlike almost everybody else, he won a title on his debut, and within his first year, had a talk show by the name of Carlito's Cabana. Big things were in store for Carlito, Caribbean cool. He had the look, the in-ring skills, which again felt effortless to him, as he was from a wrestling family. Out of all the guys to come from the Lost Generation, video coming soon. What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. It's been a while since we've done a mid-card title reign, so let's get into it. Carlito had been out with an injury for several months, hurting his development a bit. Upon his return, he had the talk show and was just coasting along until the WWE draft. Unlike every other year, the draft was conducted an entirely different way in 2005. Every week a huge wrestler would come in and it made each selection feel big. On one of those nights, Carlito came out on Raw. His reactions like he weren't expecting me, and similar to last time, this was a title match. Shelton Benjamin had been champion for about 7 months up to this point. He had excelled and stole the show on many occasions, and to me, this title reign is one of the very best from the 2000s. Okay, Shelton was explosive early on, but after crashing and burning, the challenger took control. Shelton fights through, has a lot of momentum, barring this DDT, and was all over Carlito until he found his shoulders on the mat. Carlito had the tights, and just like that was the new Intercontinental Champion. This also meant Shelton's push was gone. The match itself was decent enough, but it wasn't anything noteworthy. It's not a match you'll feel compelled to watch at all. It's just average. Afterwards, Maria asked him, "How did you do it, Carlito?" And then he talks about how he did this on SmackDown and proceeded to drop a part of that apple in her face. He didn't want to do it, but he had to because she wasn't cool. Obviously, I think the contrary, but I'm not Carlito. For the second time in his career, he captured the title in his debut, and it goes to show you how highly they thought of him at the time. There aren't that many people that could say the same, and of course we all know how his career turned out, but for the moment, he was one of the brightest stars. Carlito's first title defense came at Vengeance when he had to face Shelton Benjamin in a rematch. This one was alright. It was a bit better than the Raw match. Shelton right out of the gate showed his determination and hunger in order to regain the title. It got to the point where Carlito's like, "I ain't staying in Vegas." And this led to nothing but a constant onslaught from the challenger who was putting in the work. For the champion, it took him a key moment where Shelton was phased, which gained him control, and minus a few hiccups, the champion was in control, trying to wear down Shelton and take him out of the match. After Benjamin's Samoan drop, the match was in the final third. The action was back and forth with Shelton having the edge, but unfortunately for him, Carlito's cunningness and intelligence brought him the victory, meaning he was still champion. Definitely better than the Raw match. It had the heat and excitement from the crowd, because they kicked off the show, and we got to give the crowd a little bit of credit. Why? Because they made a simple crossbody seem like a surefire victory. So it's a cool one. The story itself, Shelton had more confidence and urgency than compared to the previous week, while Carlito was just smarter. Even though he wasn't the better man, he found a way to win it. The next night on Raw, Carlito hosted his Cabana. He bragged about how this show will be replacing the highlight reel, and he's damn sure that there won't be any Fozzy music on this show. Damn, is that title beautiful. Carlito's excitement faded away despite all this because the next draft pick was a lemon, a disappointment. Carlito's sources must have been Kayfabe News or The Onion because it was Rob Van Dam. He still called him an injured lemon though. Carlito had to mention One Night Stand and how RVD complained. He had that shoot promo at the time. Van Dam responded saying that when he thinks of Carlito, he thinks of fruit. What? The crowd didn't really react much to that. He spoke about being one of a kind in his upcoming return, and then all of a sudden, the Intercontinental Champion said, quote, "You're still injured, and Carlito likes you that way," and he proceeded to delay Van Dam's return for a long time and added insult to injury. On yet another Cabana, ahead of his Intercontinental Championship match with Shelton Benjamin, Carlito invited Shawn Michaels to the show. Unfortunately for him, the original talk show host Chris Jericho interrupted. For Carlito, this was a huge opportunity to teach Chris Jericho how to host a show properly. Y2J, though, shut him up, mentioning that the highlight reel overshadowed the Cabana with John Cena. Jericho demeaned the Cabana, calling for the men to take away this yard sale of a set in favor of the Jeritron 5000. He tried intercepting the Cabana and bringing HBK to the show, but the champion said that the highlight reel is like Jericho. It's boring, outdated, and it sucks. Carlito followed this up by fat-shaming Jericho and asking for that Appleback, citing it as a detriment to his body. The roast battle continued with Jericho saying he's cool because he's Canadian and called Carlito Sideshow Bob. He started getting embarrassed of himself, and this was all during Jericho's tirade where he was saying he's a second show talk host. To Jericho, it was simple. He was Johnny Carson, whereas Carlito was Carson Daly. He couldn't really top Y2J, and it was out of his hands. But instead of the highlight reel being the setting for HBK's interview, it was the original talk show hosts, Roddy Piper. They looked like little kids pointing at themselves, and there was nothing they could do. Awesome segment. I loved how they played off each other, especially Jericho's delivery. He looked dead and buried after Carlito started talking bad about him, but he bounced back and then Carlito started feeling embarrassed. The best line for me had to be Sideshow Bob, and Carlito smiled afterwards. He just sold that feeling of being embarrassed so well. With that said, the champion had to focus on more important business. Similar to Vengeance, Shelton had more intensity around here. Carlito had his moves early on, but he was thrown for a loop before the commercial break. Afterwards, he's out there dishing punishment. The coach pulled the coach and called Carlito the greatest IC champion, and if having one successful title defense is the criteria, then we might as well say Santino's the greatest. The fans were trying to ramp up the pressure on the champion and his emotions showed. But it wasn't working to Shelton's advantage yet. He was worn out. Carlito's doing the regular mid-card heel offense, then one tiny moment almost opened the doors for the challenger. However, Carlito shut it down with a sudden DDT. The suplex goes awry and there's the fire that Shelton had in the beginning. This was caused by the champion's frustrations and even then, he almost stole it. Whatever he was throwing at Shelton, the man was kicking out and it got to the point where Carlito frantically brought in the title. His plan was, well, I don't know. I doubt he even had an idea. Instead, Shelton dropped him with a kick to the face and it looked like he was going to lose by countout, but he recovered in time and realized, hey, I'm a heel. So he grabbed his title and walked away, doing the ultimate heel move. It's just irritating and I kind of felt it watching this match. Initially, I didn't appreciate it, but as time went on and Benjamin started rebounding on the offense, it grew on me. It was well on its way to possibly surpassing the Vengeance match, but Carlito didn't want that to happen. Nonetheless, I kinda liked it. It ain't a recommended watch though, but it definitely would be a positive of this Raw episode if you watch it. In light of this controversial loss for Carlito, he had to face Shelton in a no countout match. Unlike the previous match, Carlito showed more urgency and aggression early on. Shelton though quickly rebounded and even fixed a botch mid-air. Similar to the last two matches, Carlito once again was like, bye. But this time he couldn't really risk it because he was going to lose the title. Benjamin was just flying throughout this match, and the thing that's different about this is the length. You're thinking, hey, it's Carlito, Shelton, Benjamin, they're going to get at least 10 minutes with commercial. But they rushed a lot of moves, and while Carlito was in danger of losing the title, he ended up low-blowing Benjamin to retain the title in 4 minutes. This wasn't good, and at this point, they did too many rematches. They do the same spot where Carlito wants to leave, and it's about time they move on. The problem, though, with this was the fact that it didn't have a definitive ending. Shelton always has the match won, he's about to win it, then Carlito cheats to do it, and it's the same thing. The way it was booked, it looked like a no DQ match was imminent, and for some reason Mandela got me once again. I thought that was what's to come. But it wasn't, and instead Carlito moved on to things that didn't relate to the Intercontinental Champion. With him making a name for himself in recent weeks, well, he kind of made a name for himself earlier on, but you get what I mean. Carlito finally crossed paths with John Cena again, in an effort to eradicate the champ's almost unstoppable momentum, and trust me, it was that. Carlito was booked to face him in a match with Chris Jericho as the special referee. Of course, this was cool in his eyes because if he won it, he was going to get a title shot. The match turned out to resemble something from SVR 2007. Cena and Carlito the NPCs, and naturally the 90 overall Cena has the match won, but then player 1, Y2J, ruins everything and gives John Cena his first loss in 5 months. It was a 2 birds in 1 stone situation. Carlito gets a title shot and Cena's momentum is ruined. But ain't no way 2005 John Cena is losing a title match, let alone to Carlito. And that's what happened. Even though Y2J was corrupt like a FIFA official, John Cena escaped with the W and most importantly the title. So that was a quick thing. Unfortunately for the IC champion, his involvement in SummerSlam was non-existent. And this is despite being the champion. If you look back through the years, this has been a habit. 2003, Christian was missing. 2006, Johnny Nitro. 2011, Cody Rhodes. But then again, it's not as bad as being left off of Backlash. The night after, though, there was actually something for the champion. So Carlito invited Ric Flair to the Cabana. It's important to note that Flair had been gone from Raw in a while, and even though he was a heel for 3 years, the fans couldn't hate him. Seeing as they were in Flair country, the crowd was a bit more receptive towards the Nature Boy. After embarrassing himself with a bunch of woos, Carlito spoke about how Flair faced his father Carlos Colon in the past. Even though his father said that Flair wasn't that good, he thought, well, scratch that, Carlito actually agreed. The champion tried to downplay Flair's 16-time champion accolade, saying he's lost the title 16 times, unlike him who's a 1-time Intercontinental champion, which was also a title that Ric Flair never won. Despite Carlito saying he's not cool, the Nature Boy agreed, saying he's simply Ric Flair. He began flexing when from out of nowhere, Carlito spat in his face. Flair retaliates and sends Carlito running, and while this was the catalyst for a Carlito and Flair feud, it also caused the start of the Triple H storyline. Also, how are you going to be celebrating like that when you got Apple on your face? In other places, Shawn Michaels trashed Carlito's title reign, saying nobody's talking about his match. As a matter of fact, they've been talking about HBKs from 10 years ago, and the reason why is because he hasn't had any. He's citing this as a prime example of the title not making the man, He started over his words and claimed that nobody has the balls to face him. He threatened to spit the apple in Michaels' face, but got a little too scared. The masterpiece comes out, brawl, Ric Flair makes a save, and it's a 10-long special, a tag team match. Despite the match being booked, Ric Flair was beaten to a bloody heap. He made it by the end of the night with so much momentum by his side. Carlito had to resort to a low blow leading to the victory. Flair was beaten and battered, but by next week it was there, and yes, it was Carlito who attacked him. Instead of blasting him with a chair or something, he opted to grab his balls and throw his apples to the ground before telling Carlito that he's going to school. Basically, he's issuing a challenge and randomly said that instead of biting an apple, he's going to take a bite from his ass? What? Carlito didn't really do much about it, and even when he tried to attack him the following week, HBK made the save. Unfortunately for the Intercontinental Champion, this title match at Unforgiven turned out to be the end of his title reign. The match itself wasn't centered on Carlito, rather the story was about if Flair could win the one title that he never held. Carlito did isolate Flair and go after the arm, but nonetheless, Flair made a comeback and even successfully hit an aerial move, which is so rare. He won a world title by going up to the top in the past. Unfortunately for himself, he was overzealous, leading to a dropkick. The champion though screwed himself over by choking on his own damn apple and getting locked in the figure 4. Carlito taps and Ric Flair is the new Intercontinental Champion. So there's the title reign. This match, solid. It's not out of this world. I wouldn't even say it was good or anything like that. If you watch the pay-per-view, decent. Alright, so that's Carlito's title reign. The problem with this title reign for me, I feel everyone remembers Carlito as the Intercontinental Champion. We just don't remember what he was doing with the title, and that's basically what it was here. We remember Shelton Benjamin's first run, faced Christian, Chris Jericho, had some great matches, stole the show, all of that. Carlito, though, the only thing I remember is the fact that he was the IC Champion. Even Ric Flair's title reign was somewhat memorable, and that's due to the Triple H feud, which is a whole other story. But yes, his title reign over here, it's kind of dull. Was Carlito entertaining? Yes, I love the segments, like Cabana, stuff like that. But as the champion, it just didn't stand out to me at all. When we look at the title reigns from the 2000s, it just does not stand out. The only thing I remember is Carlito as the IT champion. We don't remember much from his run. But on a scale from 1 to 10, I give it a 5. Sounds too low, but I'm going to give my reasons. As I said, title reign doesn't stand out. He had a lot of rematches with Shelton, and in the span of 3 months, he had 4 title defenses. So take it as you will. Positive, I love the segments from this run. It was very entertaining. I loved when he and Chris Jericho battled it out. His Cabana segment with RVD. But as I said, this just doesn't stand out for me. I will say, though, that at face value, it feels like Carlito did have another title run, but he didn't because, well, Mandela's always getting me. Favorite match from this title reign, I'm going to go with Vengeance match. Carlito and Shelton Benjamin from Vengeance. It was fast-paced. Crowd was very into it. There was a lot of heat. I like the story they told as well. Alright, what do you guys think of Carlito's title reign? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the springboard elbow on the like button and perhaps the backstabber on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.